Greetings, tankers. Many different situations occur on the world of tanks battlefields, as each player thinks and plays differently. This allows for endless possibilities in the flow of a battle. It seems impossible to come up with the correct decisions for every situation possible, and that's true, but only to some extent. You can learn how to read the situation on the map correctly and then take decisions that are more likely to lead to victory. This is where knowledge of the main principles of team play can help. The parameters for winning in random battles are well known to players. Destroy all enemy vehicles or capture the enemy base. Using your understanding of a tank's characteristics and capabilities, the lineup of your team and where they are likely to go, and the multitude of situations that can occur on a variety of maps is called strategy. Tactics are a precise order of actions made by a player and their allies during a battle. These decisions are made by evaluating the situation and then responding to potential threats created by the movement of players on your team and the enemies, based on your vehicle's role. Here we can see some examples of game tactics on different maps. They show how well players understand routes of movement and firing lines from either side. Here we can see players optimizing their capabilities with an understanding of their tank's characteristics and map terrain. And here we can also see how the mechanics of view range and concealment, firepower and armor effectiveness, vehicle mobility and map terrain, team hit points and player psychology can affect the course of a battle. This may look overwhelming at first, but let's break it down for you right now. Any battle can be divided into 3 distinct stages: the start of the match, the main battle, and the end of the match. During the starting stage, players drive to positions where their tanks tend to excel in performance. The choice of position depends on the vehicle characteristics, map features that benefit the tank, and the team lineup for both teams. On the basic level of understanding tactics, a player should learn to select the right position for their vehicle. It should allow for spotting the enemy or firing at them depending on your vehicle role, while still protecting your vehicle to ensure a positive trade in hit points. There are many positions on a map. For your convenience, we're going to divide them into 3 fronts. The first goes right through the center of the map. It's where the most heated clashes between assault and versatile vehicles with good armor and lots of hit points take place. Look for the buildings, the embankments, the embrasures, and the large rocks. These terrain features help limit the exposure of weak spots, making it more difficult for enemies to penetrate your armor. Of course, it also helps if it provides you with protection from artillery, especially if you're in a prolonged engagement. The second line is for the support vehicles with accurate guns but lower survivability. Bushes, felled trees, and foliage will help these vehicles remain concealed while also causing damage to the opposition. And the third line is for base defense and where you will find positions for artillery. At the start of the battle, SPGs should position themselves away from danger so they can spend the rest of the battle in safety while still causing damage to the opponents. Areas with lots of open space and irregular terrain are usually where you will find the most maneuverable tanks in fast-paced, dynamic skirmishes or attempting to scout for their allies. Hills, ridges, and uneven areas are where tanks with good gun depression are most effective, regardless of their role. This may seem straightforward at first, but there is more to choosing a position that increases your chance of victory. So let's delve a bit deeper. Decisions should not just be made on a vehicle's role, as each map has a few key positions which influence or define the outcome of a battle. Experienced and skilled players will find and use them, therefore you will usually find the most intense fighting there. Understanding what makes these positions key is how you will learn to find more positions for yourself and how to use them to your advantage. Here are several characteristics of key positions. Firstly, the location should allow for spotting the movement and positions of enemies. The position should protect vehicles well with concealment, map terrain, or indestructible objects. The position allows for providing crossfire support to allies, and alternatively the position allows the allies to fire at the enemy with ease. High ground or elevated terrain allows for line of sight and line of fire across a large, significant area of the map. The position provides the option to continue attacking with relative ease after gaining an advantage. And if you give the position to the enemy, they will have the opportunity to crossfire your team or maneuver to your disadvantage. The more of these aspects a position has, the more important and critical it is that your team controls it. Identifying and controlling these positions becomes easier as you gain more experience. A fundamental rule in World of Tanks is 2 guns are better than 1. That's why during tournaments, global maps, and competitive gameplay, you will see tactics that focus on concentrated attacks, outnumbering the opponents, and removing the low hit point tanks rapidly to gain a firepower and hit point advantage. But do you think this rule applies in random battles? It's important to understand that the positions on the map are not just there for scenery. They are interconnected with the opportunity to spot and damage an enemy from multiple lines of fire. Knowledge of these lines of fire allow you to orchestrate situations where the allied team can cause more damage to the enemy than they can do in return. Let's take the hill on mines as an example. It's a classic key position. Controlling it allows you to spot the enemies such as tank destroyers on the 3rd line and even the occasional pesky artillery. Using concealment, you can cause damage to them while allies can fire from their positions upon your spotting of the enemy. While armored vehicles use their turret or side scrape to provide support from the middle, the artillery can safely punish the opposition from above. You will also have the option of helping your allies with crossfire from both sides of the hill. When you're near the ruined tower on elevated ground, it will be easier for you to penetrate heavily armored vehicles from above. Alternatively, at the entrance, you can provide supporting fire against tanks that are overconfident. When the enemy team starts to run out of tanks and hit points, your allies can go on the offensive. The advantage of this position should now be obvious. However, the hill is not the only position for victory. As a battle develops, the key positions can change. For example, the position at the water allows for controlling enemy movement near the lighthouse and provides support fire for allies on the hill, especially if the enemy team begins to push through. The tanks may be on different flanks, but together they link to form an advantage in the number of guns fighting for the central position on the map. If the enemy team try to attack along the island and water route, they will be spotted, and your allies can react accordingly, destroying them from key positions in the center. A further reason for this position being vital is if it's left uncontested, you risk the enemy sneaking past your team and punishing your teammates near the hill from the rear, ending up in a crossfire with the obvious and unfortunate outcome. Always consider how the enemy can develop their attack or plan to stop you, and always aim to be one step ahead. Do this by taking key positions that link together to stop the enemy in their tracks. In the case a player doesn't understand the connection between these positions, they may control a position that is perfect for their tank, but they can't support or be supported by allies. Overall, this will lead to a higher chance of loss, so try to avoid making this mistake. And that's mistake with a capital M. Let's take a look at 2 examples to show you what we mean. Here a player decides to protect the artillery with the logic, let the opponents come so I can shoot them. In this case, the player is isolated from the battle and can't contribute to the fight until it is already over. They increase the chance of losing for their team, no matter how well they play at the end of the battle. And here's a medium tank rolling up the hill on Malinovka eagerly to meet the opponents near the mill. At first, this may seem to be a sensible decision because the team that wins the hill often wins the battle. But he hasn't noticed that his allies are not yet in position and he is all alone. Having such spread out forces makes it easy for the enemy to pick you off as you walk into their line of fire, one by one, literally lining up for the enemy. further increasing their chances of winning the position and allowing them to continue their attack. Remember, always take positions where your allies can help, because 2 guns are better than 1. To summarize, try to visualize at the start where you usually see tanks and keep a mental note of where you expect them to go. Draw imaginary firing lines from your position to the allies and enemies. By repeating this exercise often, you can learn to understand why one player's game might end early and why another might be on the top of the team, why one team wins and the other loses. This may seem obvious at first, but it can assist inexperienced players in mastering the tactical moves in World of Tanks. In the next video, we will talk about what tactical moves and vehicle role interactions will help you gain the advantage when moving to key positions. So make sure you subscribe to get notified of the next video release.